Hey everyone, welcome back to BRAP. It is Wednesday, August the 14th. I can't believe that we're already in the month of, or halfway through the month of August. This year is flying by. It's crazy. And what that means, we're going to have more video games coming soon. But I do want to introduce, well, first of all, we give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat here. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Appreciate it. Please smash the like button. And if you're new, subscribe, hit the bell notification, let everyone know, or I should say, hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. I'm also going to drop a link here in the live chat. Please share the link, retweet it, share it on your favorite social media platform, and let everyone know we're live. But I do have with me a returning guest. We have Ramon Terrell. Ramon, what's going on, man?
Yo, what's going on? I'm over here lamenting the fact that summer has turned the corner. I always know when summer has turned the corner for the worst because it's no longer getting dark at 10 to 10:15 at night. So it's almost over. I'm trying to hold on.
What time does it get dark there?
Up in Vancouver at the longest days of the year in summer, it gets dark between 10:30, or not 10, about 10 to 10:15 ish.
What time does the sun come up?
I want to say maybe like 5 or 5:30, something like that.
Oh wow, that's awesome, man! A lot of daylight.
Yeah, we get in the summertime we get a lot of daylight, but then when autumn hits and then we get into winter, it gets dark at like 4:35.
Yeah, I mean that's like here. It gets like dark at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. Daylight savings time doesn't help, but yeah, no, I hear you. But no, welcome back, Ramon. Appreciate you having you on. It's always a pleasure to talk video games with you, and as a fellow brethren of the PC community. And by the way, I love the setup. You have the tower next to the TV. You know, who says you can't play PC while sitting on your couch?
Man, I'll tell you what. Like, there's trade-offs for everything. So I mean, you know, there's things that are better for consoles, such as Jedi Survivor is a perfect example. Respawn crap the bed hard on the PC version.
Like, let's not talk about that right now.
Yeah.
Not with Logic on the who just joined the panel because he was busting my chops about playing Jedi Survivor on PC this morning. But go ahead, man.
Well, yeah, I downloaded a mod that stabilized it, and I was able to enjoy the game, and you know, maxed out ray tracing on, you know, almost maxed out all settings, you know, high frame rates, and it was beautiful once I had it running. But you know, Respawn should be, well, EA, if they put that limitation on Respawn, they should be ashamed because somebody else had to fix their game. But on the flip side to that, you know, it's pretty damn amazing, and having it hooked up to the TV, you know, the only trade-off is I have to use a wired, a long USB cord for my controllers to get all the DualSense features and, you know, and all of that. But it's worth the trade-off because it's pretty damn amazing. So
you're not obstructed by cats and people.
Oh my God. I started off wireless. Like, I was like, okay.
I heard that was an impediment to using PlayStation controllers that have low battery life.
Oh my God. You know, I hear the low battery life complaint.
Wait.
But maybe
Remote Logic is not making this up, by the way. Someone actually said it to us, but that's why I'm laughing. The cats thing wasn't something that was used as an example of why. But go ahead, man. Yeah.
Oh my God, cats. Nah, it's been pretty cool though. I mean, you know, October will be my 1-year PC gaming anniversary, and like, aside from having almost duplicated my third-party PS library on Steam, as well as my first-party PS library on Steam. Not going to talk about that. I'm over here fighting for my life because the sales are ridiculous. Prince of Persia, Lost Crown, and then the Rogue one that is in early access. They're selling it in a bundle. Like, individually, they're discounted, and then the bundle takes off an additional 10% on that. So I'm sitting there looking at it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And before I even finished the sentence, I had hit click buy. So Steam got me over here fighting for my life. I'm getting my ass kicked, but I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah.
And anybody who says, I mean, well, opinions will vary, but anybody who says, oh, ray tracing is, it's not worth it, it's a gimmick, it's a waste, blah, blah, blah. I am a ray tracing addict. I will literally go from triple digit frames to 60 frames per second if that means that I can have maxed out ray tracing. Like, yeah, love it.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. No, that's awesome, Ramona, and we'll have to celebrate your 1 year anniversary on PC, which is the premier gaming platform that everyone should be gaming on.
Oh man, see, I ain't gonna say all that now.
I'm going to say all that. Despite Logic slandering my experience of Jedi Survivor, I remember playing it at release, and it did have some performance issues. I downloaded the most recent update to play the game again, and it seems to play better than what I remember, but there's still some a little bit of jank, I guess, with the traversal. Sometimes the camera seems shaky. There's just some jank at times. So I may need to look into that mod to download to get the game to run a bit smooth. I'm not running it with ray tracing on; it's off, but I do have it running on high settings with NVIDIA. What's it called? The oh my god, why am I forgetting it? Geez, why the hell am I forgetting NVIDIA's? I keep thinking about FSR, but it's NVIDIA's
DLSS.
DLS, thank you, Ramon. I have it running on balance right now, so I'm getting about in like areas that are a bit crowded or there's a lot of action sequences or combat, get about 80 FPS, and then outside of that, it's about 100. So, and I'm playing it on my OLED, so it looks good on the OLED.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, despite Logic's slander of the game, but. Anyhow, that note, I do want to welcome Game Logic. Logic, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. How are you guys?
All right.
Outside of the PC slander, doing well, Logic. All right, so I do want to go to what everyone's playing. So I'm actually playing a game now. I've got out my gaming funk, and I'm playing Jedi Survivor. Went back. I did play the game at release. I really wasn't. We talked about the performance of the game. Wasn't that great at the time of release, but went back, played again, picked up where I left off, and played about an hour and a half or so last night. Enjoyed my time with it, despite some of those issues that I mentioned to Ramon that I've seen, but enjoying it so far. So, what about you, Ramon? What are you currently playing right now?
I am so glad you asked. I am playing a gem called Hob, H-O-B. It's an indie game. And I'm actually looking to see. Okay, so it's an indie game, and I can't remember the name of the developer, but HOB is in Bravo. It is surprisingly deep. Like, the world map is enormous, but the way it's not overwhelming. Like, I get open world fatigue. Like after a certain amount of time, but the way you access the different land masses, it's hard to describe exactly, but like it's a really charming, open, beautiful game. You manipulate the land masses by raising or lowering them and releasing water and then cleansing the area. Basically, you're cleansing the landscape and then reuniting all of the land masses, and it's there's a story, but it's not like, a heavy story. It's just adventure. But when I say that I'm having a blast with this game, it's so charming. It's really, really good. It's available on PC and PlayStation. I'm not seeing it. I was trying to look it up on the Xbox app, and I'm not seeing it. So, I mean, it could be on Xbox, but I'm not seeing it on Xbox via the app where you can, I look for games. So if you're on Xbox, maybe just look it up. Hopefully it's on Xbox, but I don't know for certain. But definitely PC and PlayStation, and I don't know if it's on Nintendo. But yeah, like if you're not playing indie games, I mean, I get it, AAA games are amazing, but everyone, if you don't play indie games, I implore you to give some a try. You're really missing out on some great creative experiences, and for a fraction of the price of AAA games. And they're nice palate cleansers that don't overstay their welcome.
BRAP only plays bangers, but go ahead. Hey, anything else, Ramon?
Well, in my opinion, Hobbs a banger, but that's it.
No doubt, no doubt.
Well, in BRAP's book, you can't qualify to be a banger unless you have a budget of at least 150 million.
That's the floor. At least 100 million plus. Like Logic's is 110% right. It's got to be AAA or quadruple A. And it's got to be at least an 80 Metacritic. And that's pushing it. That's pushing it. What about you, Logic? What are you currently playing right now? We lose Logic?
No, I'm here. And if in the chat, if you guys can give me a mic check and let me know if I need to raise or lower the volume. Just let me know.
Turn my mic up.
So I've been playing a lot, either way. Been playing a little bit of Euro Truck Simulator 2, using my Thrustmaster T300 RS Gran Turismo Edition wheel and pedals.
That's a nice looking wheel, by the way. I saw that post.
Oh,
very nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, it's actually.
It looks a lot better when you put them on an H frame. It's a lot. It's one of those weird things. Often I will spend a lot of money on not on a peripheral, but like on a device or something, and then years later we'll finally get like a peripheral or something for it, and I'll be like, this like makes the ROI on this thing like twice as much as it ever was. I should have bought it like right away. And that's kind of how I feel about like the H frame for the wheel and pedals. For
did you go with the Mad Cats first and then pick this one up?
No, so I've always had good wheel and pedals, but I've always just like mounted them on my desk. But spending the money on a separate H frame to take it off of the desk and put it on a really rigid mount just like increases the racing gameplay experience. Or just simulation, because Euro Truck Racer 2 is not really a Euro Truck Simulator 2 is not really a racer. Just increases the experience like tenfold. But yeah, I've been playing that. It's been pretty fun, very interesting, because I haven't spent a ton of time driving overseas, so it's super I have to constantly tell myself, like, recite in my head as I'm playing the game, you drive on the left here, you drive on the left here. Lots of things, as much as I've traveled the world, just lots of things that I still don't know and didn't realize. Like I didn't realize you drive on the left in Great Britain, but you go across the Channel and you come out in France and they drive on the right. So it just kind of threw me for a loop.
Wait, so you got to make that mental shift on the fly. Yeah.
Oh, that's
trippy.
Yeah, that's really trippy.
And then the Channel, and I haven't had a chance to do some research to look at what it really looks like, but at least the way it is in Euro Truck Simulator, because you're driving on the left, so you make a left-hand turn, then there's rows of traffic lanes. That's a right-hand turn, so you get across traffic again. Then you have rows of single traffic lanes with concrete barriers in between, and so you pick a lane, and there's in the simulator there's like 4. I'm sure that there's more like traffic separation schemes or whatever than that. But you turn into these things, and it's incredibly tight for a truck. Then each traffic lane then splits left and right. Once you go down this hill, and then you don't actually, at least for trucks, you don't actually drive through the Channel. There's actually like slats with triangular metal support beams, kind of like you would have like on a bridge, like separating basically parking spots on a flat slat, and you drive the truck onto that and park it, and then the trucks are towed across the Channel by train, which is super interesting, but makes absolute sense. BRAP, I can't remember, what was the tunnel that I was constantly going across when I was passing through Baltimore? 895.
That would be so the Harbor Tunnel's 95, 895. Oh, maybe that's the Harbor Tunnel. I don't remember. One's a Fort McHenry tunnel. And one's a Harbor Tunnel.
Yeah. So go that the Monitor Merrimack, the Bay Bridge Tunnel, all those things. Like the big huge problems with those Newport Bridge Tunnel. The problem with those is if you cross those on your daily commute on the regular, the problem is like 33% of the time there's been some accident in the tunnel. It's all backed up. It snarls traffic up. In multiple directions.
It's the Baltimore. It's the Harbor Tunnel. By the way. Okay. Yeah. That's the one 895 and. The other one's in Fort McHenry. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, and a lot of the times that problem is caused because somebody taps on their brakes. Other people are following super close behind them. It trips trucks up, and somebody gets rear-ended, and then everything comes to a screeching halt. So, super interesting that's the technology and the transport infrastructure in the countries to obviate that problem. So, just getting exposed to all types of stuff. I think you guys saw on Twitter. I was like. Just traffic lights work like not radically different, but like different enough that it like causes a few moments to kind of get your head wrapped around it. And then Paul's Gaming Live was telling me, I was like, yeah, yellow by itself means one thing, but yellow in conjunction with a red or a green light means like two different things. And I'm like, dude, I'm never gonna keep that straight. Like, so yeah, so I've been playing that. Man. I right before I jumped on, I downloaded two indie games again, BRAP. Operation Polygon Shift.
I'm talking about.
I wait for my indies to come on subscription services.
Go on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So Operation Polygon Shift, which is an RTS strategy game that just released this week on Steam, and also Hellbreach Vegas, which is like a horde mode zombie game, a little bit like Left 4 Dead, but I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but I don't think it's like Left 4 Dead in terms of like you start at point A and you have to traverse to point B with your crew. I think you're on a relatively stationary level, and it's just defend the horde and rack up points for whatever. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to play those yet, so I may have some of the specifics inexact, but yeah, that's what I've been playing. And then Horizon Zero Dawn and Wolfenstein: The New Colossus on my Steam Deck, and I've also been playing a little bit of Doom 2016 on the PC.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Doom 2016. That's awesome, man. You got so you have a very nice mix of like different genres that you're going through right now. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I took the gas pedal off of the JRPGs for a little bit. Put Baldur's Gate 3 down for a little bit, so had a chance to get back to playing some Sims and first person shooters.
And when I saw you were playing Horizon Zero Dawn, man, I'm like, I need to at some point get ready to fire that up and see what it's like on PC. But. Yeah,
it's on Steam Deck you don't get the visuals, but it's a really great experience. Just kind of kick back, in a comfy chair, playing it handheld. I think on PC it's one of those games that I've kind of always approached like I don't want to. It's not a game that I want to play like when I have 30 minutes here and there. And in fact, that's why I'm playing Doom 2016. I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the show, but since Call of Duty had kind of been my, it's after the podcast, I just want to play 30 minutes right before I go to bed. Or, I've got a 30-minute block, I want to get some in. And I would play Call of Duty multiplayer, in longer stretches than that. But that was kind of my go-to if I was like pressed for time. And so since I've fallen off of Call of Duty, I was like, but I have to have like something quick, that I can get in. So racing games sometimes have been fulfilling that, but that's one of the reasons why I've been playing Doom 2016, because I could just go through, play 30 minutes, get to a checkpoint, and then shut it down. Horizon Zero Dawn, I don't usually play like that. I usually want to play where I've got like a lot of time to let that breathe. But actually, surprisingly, in handheld mode, it works really well. In 30-minute clips. So sometimes you have to, play a few extra minutes to get to a checkpoint, but and sometimes, it's 30 minutes and you don't really get a lot done. You just, go to a quest giver, get a quest, and then go find a campfire. A lot of times, I will wind up scouting out an area and kind of getting a lay of the land and like figuring out where different, I call them Dinobots, where different Dinobot, stomping areas are, and then get to a campground and get my save there. And then when I come back, I'm like, okay, these things were there, these things were there. I know, where I need to cut between to get to my objective and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been working out well.
Yeah, I haven't played it in some years, so it's gonna be fun to get to jump back into that. One thing I'm thinking about doing is when Ragnarok comes to PC, firing up my PS3 and doing a God of War marathon, because the first six are on PS3. Well, they remastered 3 on PS4, but the first 6, and then 2018 in Ragnarok.
Yeah, you know what? I interested to get your feedback on Forbidden West when you fired up on PC. I played it on PS5, but I don't have no interest going back. I one of the things I don't do is go back and play the PlayStation first party games when they release on PC, because I've already played them. Although I may go back to The Last of Us, because I just actually earlier today I actually fired up the television show to watch again, the HBO series The Last of Us, and I got that itch. I was like, maybe I'll go back and play that version on PC. But speaking of going back to things, so I don't know if you guys know this or not, but today is the 35th anniversary of the launch of the Sega Genesis here in North America. It actually launched August 14th, 1989. I was 12 years old. I was 12. Hamp was 25. And Ramon, I think you were 2. But what a great console. I'll never forget popping in Altered Beast and hearing I command you to rise from your grave. And I remember hearing that and seeing the graphics and just being blown away. It was like, wow, this looks amazing. And the Genesis for me will go down as one of my favorite gaming consoles of all time. I mean, it was
Yes.
yeah, I mean, one of the things that really stands out to me for the Sega Genesis is the sports games. I mean, it had a lot of great sports games. Madden. It had Joe Montana Sports Talk Football. It had Sports Talk Baseball. It had World Series Baseball. It had hockey. Remember the hockey game where you could make the players bleed? It was EA, was NHL. I forget what it was called. EA's NHL something. And you could check a player that would bleed. But there are also other great games like Shinobi, Space Harrier 2, Ghouls and Ghosts, Golden Axe. A lot of the popular arcade games made their way to the Sega Genesis. Altered Beast, as I mentioned earlier. There's some others that I'm missing. Phantasy Star was another one. Let's see here. Tommy Lasorda Baseball. I was one of that came, and that I never forget Tommy Lasorda Baseball. I mean, like spending hours and hours playing Tommy Lasorda Baseball. You hit a home run, the ball like the size that the baseball would enlarge as it went up in the air. If you guys remember that. Buster Douglas Knockout Boxing was another one. There was I think Arnold Palmer also had a baseball game too. Streets of Rage. Oh my gosh, I know I'm missing a bunch of other games. NBA, the NBA games by EA were on there as well, and Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, who could? I mean, Sonic the Hedgehog was one of those. At the time, we called it the Mario Killer. And then Mortal Kombat. If you remember the Mortal Kombat when that came out, the cool version of Mortal Kombat was to have it on the Sega Genesis because it actually had blood. Where the Mortal Kombat version of Nintendo decided to replace the blood with sweat and with the game's fatalities to make it less violent. So definitely, again, like I said, one of my favorite consoles of all time. Had a pretty long shelf life. I think it went on to 19. I have to was it 97? They were continuing support. I don't remember now. Maybe 98.
It went, yeah. I'm trying to think because they were still making games for it all the way through the the 32X and the Sega CD. It went a long time.
You were right, and the Saturn. That was the funny thing. I can't.
Oh, was it still supporting through the Saturn?
Yeah, I was Doomsayer. We recorded this weekend, and one of the things he asked was, what some of our favorite games were that don't get a lot of, don't get a lot of voice. And I mentioned, through all time, and I mentioned, one of my favorite games was Vector Man, and I was, I was kind of stumbling through, like when it came out, and I think I had the year right. I think it was like 97, and then I was like, why is like what? But I couldn't put my finger on like why that game didn't get a lot of voice. And it didn't get a lot of voice because the freaking thing came out. It was one of the most advanced games on the Genesis, but it came out after the Saturn. And I'm like, oh man, that's stepping on the rake, much like PlayStation put what was it, Gran Turismo? I can't remember which one it was. The Gran Turismo that came out on the PlayStation 3 after the PlayStation 4 had launched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like on the one hand, you appreciate that they're supporting the previous console, but on the other hand, it's like, what are you doing?
That move made no sense. Like, why would you do that, Sega? It's like why would you launch that game with this PlayStation 4? I mean, it just never made any sense to me.
I told you that's because the studio head of Polyphony has like some Sony executives like freaking kid tied up in his basement and has for decades.
He has incriminating footage of someone doing some things they shouldn't do.
So Polyphony just does whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Real quick, one of my favorite games on the Genesis was, I don't know if you guys remember the RTS Herzog Zooey. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. That was one of my favorite games on the Genesis. We would spend like myself, my friends. I mean, we talk about the days of, sitting on the couch playing, next to a friend. Like that was one of those games that we played. We spent hours and hours playing Herzog Zooey, which is an RTS game. I'd never played Vector Man, Logic, but you said that came out in 90, like during the Sega Saturn era, right? PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah. So Saturn had already launched by the time Vector Man came out.
Kid Chameleon was another really, really good one. They need to bring that back.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know about that one. So good.
Yeah, Vector Man came out the fall of 95, and I think the Saturn had launched earlier that year. Yeah.
So Ramon, did you own a Sega Genesis?
Oh man, yeah. I was a Sega kid. Like my like technically the first console in our house was Pong and then in television, and then my first one that was, between me and my brother, that was the NES. But then after that, we jumped over to the Genesis, and I was the Sega kid, like all the way through. I had an SNES as a secondary console briefly to do a few RPGs, and then I sold it to get some more Genesis games. So yeah, I was all about that. Like the entire Shinobi series, Revenge of Shinobi, Shinobi 3, Shadow Dancer. Like played all those, even the Shinobi on the Sega CD.
Man, Shinobi 3 was so good. Whoa, Shinobi 3
was one of my favorites. That was one of my favorites.
Do you remember how like graphic, like from a graphics, like how great the graphics were in Shinobi 3?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible what they were able to do and how much they were able to squeeze out of that console. Like it was amazing. And then I can't remember the English name for it, but there was a game called Kabuki. It was for the Mega Drive in Japan, and I got it like I think a year or several. I think a couple years maybe before it came to the U.S. Because I had my Genesis, the frame of it modded so it could fit Mega Drive games.
Because the Mega Drive cartridges had like the little like bulge,
rounded sides,
on the side. Yeah, actually, real quick, I had a friend whose dad went to Japan on business. He brought back some cartridges for the Mega Drive, and what he ended up doing was shaving the plastic down with a knife.
Yep, that's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a contact. There was this place in Studio City in Monterey Park or Montebello, one of those in LA, and they sold Japanese games. Like they used to get them. Like you'd get the box and it had all Japanese writing. You had no idea what it said on it, and you had no idea what they were talking about in the games. And a lot of those games never even came to the U.S. But the ones that did, like you played them like sometimes anywhere from a year to several years before they came to the West. And it was some good times, some really good times.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Hey, Logic, was the Sega CD, was that an add-on to the Genesis? I don't, or was that a standalone? I don't remember.
I believe that
Add-on.
was it was a add-on peripheral.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I didn't.
Did you know that had 3 iterations? Sorry to cut you off, Brap. Did you know the Sega CD had 3 iterations?
No, I didn't know that.
Check this out. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just remember playing. I never owned the Sega CD, but I did buy one. I rented one because you used to be able to rent them from Blockbuster. So I rented one like a couple times, and there was a game where, what was it like? I forget. There was like something where you were like a military person, maybe. I can't remember.
Sewer Shark.
What was Sewer Shark about?
You were going through all these tunnels. It was all FMV, and you were going through these tunnels.
It was like it was like a movie kind of.
Yeah, the full motion video. That was most of what they did on the Sega CD. It wasn't really the best.
Yes, it was Sewer Shark. That's exactly what it was. Thank you. Yeah, because it was that's right. It was a first person shooter. It was a rail shooter. I remember it was all like
rail shooter. Yep.
Yeah. And that was actually published by Sony ImageSoft, believe it or not.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot that. The Sega CD was interesting. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I'm sorry. There was a couple other games I played. That was one of them, Sewer Shark, and I don't remember. Shoot. No, I can't remember the other ones now. They'll come to mind at some point. But yeah, go ahead, Ramon.
Robo Alesta was a really good shooter as well. It was a overhead shooter back when spaceship shooters were the thing. But no, the Sega CD, like, it was fascinating because it had 3 iterations. It had the first one was this giant unit that you sat your Genesis on top of. It was almost like merging 2 robots to become one, or a spaceship, like you just sat it on top of the Sega CD, and it was heavy as hell, and it made your console just huge. The second iteration was with the second generation Genesis, I think it was, where it was more slimmed down, and it attached to the side. The Sega CD was like rectangular, whereas the CD unit was more condensed, and it had a tray, and you sat the Genesis next to it, and it became one unit. The third iteration of the Sega CD, which was the most awesome idea to this day, in my opinion, it was basically a bulky Discman. Like it was think of like a thick Discman, and the back of it had a cartridge port. It was all one unit, and it had a little strap, and you could carry it around, and you could listen to music CDs on it like a Discman. It was bigger than, like the Sony Discman, but it wasn't. But it was still just small enough to where you could carry it around and listen to music, and then you plug it into your TV and you play games on it. It was such a cool idea.
There was a WWF game. Now that I remember.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I remember like it would show like the actual like wrestler moves, like their finishers, I think. And it also, who was the ring announcer back then? I can't remember the ring announcer for the WWF at the time.
Was it
now WWE?
Was it Mean Gene Okerlund?
No, it was a ring announcer. Who was the ring announcer before Lillian Garcia? What's his name? He's someone said Yeet in the chat. Yeet.
Well, he came back for a little while, didn't he?
Yeah, what's his name? Howard Finkel.
Yeah.
His voice is also in the game. So
there it is.
What I remember. Yeah.
I had that actually. Now that I think about it, yeah, I remember. I remember now because it was when they just when games were just starting to get a lot of actual voice recording, and it was like they'd play the music, and then it would get completely silent, and then you'd hear the announcement, and then it would get completely silent, and then you'd hear the wrestler say his bit or do whatever his bit was, and like looking back on it, you could tell it was totally recorded because you could almost hear the echo. But oh man, yeah, I remember that. It was so cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely, yeah. So it was Josh Ish's Howard Finkel. That's right. So, yeah, no, just a great. I can't believe it's been 35 years. That is, time flies, and so many great games. But as I said earlier, I think for me at least, the sports games were really like for me. The sports games were like the first time where sports games felt like real sports games or accurate representations of sports games. And NHL '94 was the game that I was thinking about, where you could check someone, they could like actually bleed on the ice. But yeah, just a great system. Logic, what are some of your favorite games on the Sega Genesis?
Well, a few people have mentioned them in the chat. Joe Montana's football, very big. I was very much into football at the time. Really kind of starting to really understand the ins and outs of NFL like as a system, and really studying plays and different offenses and defenses, and really becoming super familiar with like the language of the game and stuff. So that was big. I saw somebody mention Earthworm Jim, so that was a fun one. But even more pronounced for me than Earthworm Jim was the arrival of Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure, which was and of course I'd been a kid during the during the earlier years of video gaming, with the Atari 2600 and the original Pitfall on Activision, which I didn't play, but I had, because I didn't have an Atari, but I had friends who had an Atari, so I was familiar with that. So Pitfall: The Mayan Adventure was really my first opportunity to play a Pitfall game on a system that I owned, and of course, who was already CEO of Activision back in the mid '90s. You guessed it, friend of the family, Bobby Kotick, was running the show, and so kind of orchestrated the deal to bring on some of the additional talent to do some of the animation and stuff for Pitfall. So that was kind of huge. I mean, 32X was a peripheral, but I did have one, and so I know a big thing for me on that was the Star Wars game. That was one of the big things that I was really into playing on the system. I think another thing that was interesting, I never used it personally myself. I saw, I guess it was M-Player, was the Sega multiplayer service that ran on PC like in the late 90s, early 2000s. And that was partially brought over, this is when I read the history of it, was partially brought over from Sega's initial delving into internet play. Because one of the things that I think people don't remember is, so the Sega Genesis came out, and I think it was 1989, right? But the other thing that launched in 1989 was the introduction of the World Wide Web. And so in 94, the Sega Channel was started, which was a service that was delivered by cable companies over coaxial cable, which enabled you to get access to like demos and cheat codes and other things over a very early internet service. And so, like I said, I never used the service, but as a Genesis fan and Genesis owner, I was familiar with it. It was super expensive, I guess, was one of the things, way ahead of its time. But that was one of the things that made the Genesis stand out. In terms of technology innovation. I had a Genesis. It was kind of weird. I wound up having a Genesis, I think, like 3 times, because I bought it, and I had one, and then moved and and where I was working, I wasn't allowed to have a console, so I held on to it for a while during like some rare instances where I could play it. But then eventually I got rid of it. Then I bought a second one. Then after another move, I had gotten super interested in the Jaguar, and so I grabbed a hold of a Jaguar. I think it was right before the Saturn came out. Was not impressed with the Jaguar. Traded it back in and bought a Genesis, which I only had for like a few months before the Saturn came out. So, but it was definitely a system that I had a very long relationship with. I didn't personally play it, but I know that another game that stood out from a technology perspective was Comic Zone, which, like I said, I didn't play, but was thought of as being pretty innovative during its time. So,
Yeah,
I had a ton of fun with the Genesis.
Yeah, the 32X was kind of a interesting product because it was basically like a stopgap between the Sega Genesis and the Saturn. It was kind of weird. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
It actually came out after the Saturn. So
did it? I thought it came out. Oh
no, it came out before the Saturn.
No, it came out. It came out.
That's right.
Yeah, it came out in '94. Yeah.
Yeah, very late '94. But games were still coming out for it after the Saturn came out.
Yeah, games were still coming out for it. Man, it's funny because I was in high school. I was working at Electronics Boutique, which eventually became GameStop.
By the way, Ramon, it's Sony's fault for the failure of the 32X. But go ahead.
You know, the sad part about all of this is Sega. If Sega hadn't sabotaged themselves, we'd still have I still believe we would have a viable competitor for in the space right now, because they had amazing games, they had amazing exclusives, like their marketing was always good. It was the cool system to have. Like, they really gave Nintendo a run for their money, and the only reason why they got beaten during the Genesis Super NES, despite the Genesis being an older console than the Super NES, they were still doing better until, like, I heard something about, like, there was infighting or something, and they basically self-sabotaged and killed themselves off and then getting into a race with Sony, releasing the console first, which on paper might sound like a good idea, but then you get to tell your competitor what you're doing, and they just wait for a minute and come out with something better. But it was just a shame. Like, I wish they could come back, like, take all the lessons they learned and then come back into the console space, but like, it's next to impossible, it seems.
Well, like the couple of things that you mentioned, right? The dynamics of kind of the downfall was that infighting that you mentioned was infighting between Peter Moore and Japan HQ, where Peter was trying to tell them,
that's right,
how people viewed their brand in the United States, and they just would not hear it. They thought they didn't believe crap. They thought it was full of crap. They was like, there's no way the Americans think of us like that. And then the other piece of it was the Sega Saturn, where they just kind of sprung it on people. Like they didn't have.
Yeah, that's right.
In North
I forgot about that.
They didn't put in enough work and time, like kind of seeding it and prepping retail chains in the U.S. to receive this thing. The developers hadn't had enough time with it for the North American launch.
Well, Logic, real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but you remember, like, they at E3 that year, they said, "Oh, it's out in shelves right now,"
right?
And people were like, "What?" And at the time, that's where retailers would go and place orders for games, hardware, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Logic.
No, yeah, and it was there were elements of the Saturn that were like ahead of its time from a technology perspective, but there were also things that made it difficult to program for. So, I think it was one of those instances where, it was arguably on paper like a more powerful console, but just developers were not able to wring the power from it that you would have hoped. So, and then of course they had to ball the paper up and kind of do a do-over, and they came out with the Dreamcast, which again was for me it's always kind of a personal internal battle with me agonizing over which is my personal favorite console of all time, the Xbox 360 or the Dreamcast. And probably more days than not, I lean more so towards the Dreamcast. But just by then they had already kind of, burnt a lot of their brand capital, in the U.S.
Yeah.
Such a shame. Such
Yeah.
a shame.
It really is. Gentlemen, I do want to move on to there's some rumblings of social. I can't even talk. Social media right now, where Amazon UK's leaked, potentially leaked Forza Horizon 5 coming to PS5 September 27th. So if you guys have seen that on Twitter and the live chat, I've been seeing that going around, the screenshots. It's kind of interesting. Shinobi has hinted that a major game Xbox exclusive will be coming to PlayStation next month. Maybe that's it. Who knows? But that's something that's going around right now on the Twitters and some of the forums right now that I'm looking at. But speaking of Xbox, we did get some news this week that Krafton has agreed to buy Tango Gameworks, the developer behind Hi-Fi Rush, and they're going to continue developing the Hi-Fi Rush IP and also explore future projects. They did also say that the integration. I'm sorry, that's not what I want to read. They also announced that they're still going to support content coming out of Tango Gameworks, and that the integration reinforces Krafton's dedication to expanding its global footprint, enhancing its portfolio. I'm actually I was glad to hear. Now, Krafton's actually, those who don't know, it's a South Korean publisher. They're really best known for publishing PUBG, and they also published the Callisto Protocol, and some other games as well. But I was kind of I was surprised to hear this and excited that they're going to continue developing Hi-Fi Rush, because I thought Hi-Fi Rush was one of those games that I thought Microsoft did a good job at doing that in terms of when they did that shadow drop, and it had turned out to be a really good game. I thought it was a pretty good thing for Microsoft, generated some buzz around the conversation around the Xbox platform, and then the game, and then they just sold, and then they shut down Tango Gameworks after getting a game that was received well by critics and nominated for awards at many of the different Game Awards shows. So, but what do you guys think? Go to you, Ramon. What did you think about this news of Krafton acquiring Tango Gameworks?
Well, I'm very happy for the people that are left at Tango. Hopefully they can, I mean, I'm sure those that are gone are probably gone for good. But if there's anybody around available, hopefully they can, get them back. I'm of two minds about the Hi-Fi Rush IP being saved. On the one hand, my first reaction was just I was elated, cool, we get a Hi-Fi Rush 2. It'd be awesome because I loved the first one, liked it a lot. But then I started thinking, okay, they acquired the Hi-Fi Rush IP. I'm not going to get excited until they actually announce that it's being worked on. And the reason for that is, despite the fact that Xbox, it was the cool factor of a shadow drop, it sounds cool. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, they dropped this today. Oh, that's awesome, blah, blah, blah. But the other side of the coin is you drop a game that gets no marketing. The game probably could have done a lot better. I mean, well, it's Game Pass, so it's debatable. But it probably could have done a lot better if it had some marketing behind it and people knew that it was coming before it dropped. So you have an IP that didn't do very well in sales. And, businesses do take a look at that. So the hopium that I'm huffing right now is that the people over at Krafton are like, okay, they're looking at the business side of it and they're like, okay, Hi-Fi Rush was shadow dropped. That's probably why it didn't sell well. And although rhythm games are niche, this game did a really good job of kind of bridging the gap between people who like rhythm games and people who don't particularly care for them. I mean, a lot of people still didn't, but I think they did a really good job of making it accessible. So hopefully they're saying, let's give this another shot. We'll put some marketing behind it. and we think we can make a success out of it. So that's what I'm hoping, but the kind of grounded, realistic side of me is like, I think it's a kind of a crapshoot as to whether or not we'll get to see it. But I mean, some hope is better than none. You know, you're talking to a Legacy of Kain person, so there's hope.
Good game, by the way, Legacy of Kain.
Oh my god, all five of them, all five. People always talk about Soul Reaver. Don't even get me started. People always talk about Soul Reaver, but Blood Omen is sitting right there. They all need remakes, all of them, all five. But anyway, I digress.
You're not the first person that I've heard say that, by the way. And that was Amy Hennig, by the way, I think, too, Legacy of Kain.
Yes, it was.
She was a designer of that game, yeah. So
yeah, in the story, I think she wrote the story for several. I can't remember. I know Soul Reaver, I think 1 and 2. I can't remember if she wrote Blood Omen, and I'm not sure if she wrote Defiance. Blood Omen 2, I don't think she wrote. But I can't remember for certain.
Yeah, I don't remember if she wrote that one as well. It doesn't ring a bell. Logic, you guys talked about this on your show this past week. E2KG, Enough to Keep Going podcast. You guys talked about Crafton. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, great. Like, anytime a studio gets rescued, that's a good thing. I don't think it should be forgotten or glossed over that there was no rescue for Arcane Austin.
Yeah.
So who for me personally just did games that were much more so in my personal wheelhouse than Hi-Fi Rush. I think my guess, and I'm totally speculating, is my guess and belief is this went down and this happened because there was a Southeast Asian company looking out, publisher looking out for a Southeast Asian studio, and so that's good that those geographic notions of solidarity in the gaming community or in the gaming industry are enabled and actually acted upon. So that's awesome. It's weird and wild that kind of while this was going down, we had Warren Buffett sell a bunch of stock and that kick off a bunch of fear mongering amongst the rich. A lot of them selling stocks off.
The market was going to crash.
Yeah. Everybody tipping out over their skis as if we were heading for a recession. And one of the big places that hit, like that day, and then also like just before that, Nintendo had released its earnings reports, indicating that it was down, I think, 55% on, I want to say profit. I can't remember if it was profit or revenue. So that happened, and then then a couple of days later, you had a huge sell-off on the Nikkei index that impacted a ton of gaming companies and studios that are publicly traded. And so, despite all of that going on, here's Crafton maneuvering behind the curtain to pick up Tango, and undeterred by the notion that things were about to turn really hard south, particularly in that geographic economic region. So I'm very glad that they stuck with it, because many other companies would have seen all that going on and would have been like, oh, hold on, like time, you could have had an Embracer thing, where the Saudis pulled their $2 billion of funding or whatever. So glad that didn't happen, and glad it didn't tip the apple cart. What's interesting is just kind of how things are going to go down from here forward. I think we have a handle on what the IP relationship is in terms of, Crafton also picked up the Hi-Fi Rush IP along with the purchase. But I think what's unclear, I could be wrong because maybe I just haven't read enough at the detailed level. And I think what's uncertain is what the publishing arrangement is, because it is entirely possible that Crafton bought the IP, but that Xbox, Microsoft still has publishing rights to whatever they come up with. So typically those things go hand in hand, but not necessarily. So it'll be interesting. It could be like a really quirky scenario, right? If if Tango produces Hi-Fi Rush 2, Krafton owns that IP, but Xbox publishes it. And then on top of that, you have the thing which kind of kicked off this segment, which would be a ton of uncertainty on as far as what platforms that game was going to go on to. Was it, because if it's Xbox publishing it, does that mean it's going to go to the Switch 2, and to PlayStation as well? Whereas that might be, a native decision that you would expect coming from Krafton if they were publishing it, but if Xbox were publishing it, it would still be treated as if it was like a surprise, that it wasn't an Xbox exclusive and going to other platforms. Although I would argue, even with the Forza Horizon 5, rumors that are going around, my personal feelings is at this point, no one should be surprised when Xbox says that that a game that a first party game is going to another platform. That is at this point, that exactly. Is old hat, and nobody should be making a big deal out of it.
May I ask a question? You just reminded me of something. Do you think, as far as the ownership, IP ownership versus publishing rights, do you think that might be why it doesn't seem like PlayStation has Insomniac touching Sunset Overdrive, or maybe they just don't see it as a profitable enough IP to have another go at it?
Yeah, I think we've talked about that, or maybe I've mentioned at some point before that, first of all, it's unclear to me, and I could be wrong, who owns that IP. I believe Xbox owns the IP.
No, it's
Insomniac. I thought Insomniac owned it.
Insomniac owns it?
Yeah, that was part of the deal to bring the game to Xbox Logic. Insomniac wanted to own their IP because they didn't own Ratchet and Clank. So they wanted to own their own IP, and that's why they brought it to Xbox. And I don't think it performed well. It sold well.
Yes,
which is a shame because it's actually a pretty good game.
Right, but like I was saying before, there are situations where they could very well own the IP, but Xbox could still have publishing rights, particularly on Xbox. Right, there could be the part of the arrangement could be is you do a sequel, you put it on Xbox, we get to be the publisher.
We publish it. Yeah, because that's true. Like Logic, it only says that they acquired Tango Gameworks, and with that the High Rush IP. And they're saying what's interesting is they say is from Xbox as part of a strategic agreement, and then they say they're still going to invest in developing Hi-Fi Rush IP and explore future projects. So
so there's other IPs that were caught up, that are in that mix that I don't know that we're perfectly clear on who owns those. But then the reference to strategic partnership typically means that there's some type of over-under arrangement, like where you get this, but we get that. So again, it could be, they've got the IP, but, Xbox has publishing rights or some portion of publishing rights.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I read the strategic thing there. Some of the live chat saying, looks like, I just checked, Sony owns the Sunset IP now. I don't see Insomniac doing that again, or them maybe. I could be wrong. I still see them revisiting that. But speaking of revisiting older first-party exclusives or exclusive games, on the PlayStation blog today, Sony did announce that Until Dawn, the rebuilt and enhanced version for PlayStation 5 and PC, will be launching October 4th. So this is going to be a day-and-date launch, a single-player day-and-date launch, Sony exclusive. You guys, I played a little bit of the game that when it released in 2015. I did not finish the entire game. I know Slummo's a big fan of Until Dawn, but the game has been overhauled and rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5. Its visuals have, and so this is going to be. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Logic or Ramon, but this is. This is their first single player game that's coming day and date on PC and PlayStation. Of course, that's created a buzz on the internets. I'm again, as always, I think this conversation requires a bit more nuance than this is proof that they're going to go day and date. As a enhance or rebuilt game, there's a little bit less of a lift here, and that could be a reason why they're bringing the game day and date on PS5 and PC. But still, it's the first of a single player exclusive game that's going to be releasing day and date on PS5 and PC. So I am not interested in playing this game or picking it up on October 4th. Everyone in the live chat, let me know if this is something that you guys are interested in as well. But not a game that I'm going to be picking up. Gentlemen, how about you? Are you guys planning on picking up this game, and what do you think it means potentially for the future of day-to-day games releasing on PlayStation 5 and PC?
I have zero interest, so I won't be checking for this. In terms of the whole day one PC thing, people need to stop ignoring the fact that it's an old game. It's an older game that's being remade. The day you see a major first party game go day one, then that's when you have a conversation. Oh, they're making the shift. But a game that's, I don't know how old Until Dawn is, how many years old it is.
9 years.
That game, it's a
almost
9-year-old remake. Yeah, right. By the way, what's up, B Money? Good.
What's
to
up?
see you.
Whoa. Well,
Fellas.
we gotta give him a special welcome here.
Yeah, for real, man. For real.
Returning, we have the original panel member here on BRAP. One of the originals. B Money, what's up, B?
What's going on, fellas?
Not much, man. Great to see you back on the show, man. Appreciate you stopping
man.
through.
Yeah. It was I noticed you guys were still on, and I just got in, getting the kids some food and whatnot. So I figured I should hop in here and see what's going on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So, go, B. You were, I think you were. Ramon was speaking. I think you chimed in quickly. I don't know if you don't mind. Let me go to B real quick.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so go ahead, B. What were your thoughts on the Until Dawn thing, the day and day kind of? Ramon was touching upon the fact that this game's an older game.
Yeah. Like Ramon was saying, I mean, this game is almost 10 years old. The strategy for Sony is not changing in regards to their single player games being day and date. This is just something that they're doing because this is a remake, and they do have the movie in the works. So they want it on as many platforms as possible. Going forward, I wouldn't expect for any of the major stuff that'll be getting announced here pretty soon to be released day and date on console and PC. So everybody don't get all excited expecting this to be the norm, because the strategy has not changed.
Hey, B, let me ask you something. We have you on the show here. Have you heard anything about a September 12th date?
No date as far as when they're going to start talking about stuff.
Okay.
But I have heard about a lot of things that they have in the works. Stuff that should be getting announced this year. For next year and the year after that. So it's pretty exciting stuff that I heard that is coming. So I'm looking forward to it. September, mid-September kind of makes sense. I can't remember exactly when Tokyo Game Show is, but PlayStation usually doesn't make announcements around holidays, so that would be the next week following Labor Day. So that kind of makes sense. But I haven't heard of a specific date yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Some of the stuff you're hearing about content. One of the complaints that I've been reading online from some of the more vocal PlayStation fans is that Sony's been very quiet this year. There seems to be a desire for these. There seems to be this demand of Sony to show a big, first party single player AAA game.
Because if you're a pony, you need talking points to combat the Xbox people online.
Yeah, that too. But have you heard anything in that regard, B?
Yeah. I mean, they have single player stuff coming. It's not like they have abandoned that. And I understand, some people's frustration in regards to that if that's the only type of game that you play. But I mean, Sony has been providing plenty of games to play on their platform. Of course, they haven't all been from first party, but the stuff that they've shown for first party, everybody poo-poos on. So it's like, well, just because they're not doing exactly what you want them to do, like it's not good enough. You know what I mean? So it's kind of interesting, like these people who say that they're PlayStation fans, and then they shit on everything that isn't single player, third person, over the shoulder, sad dad simulator. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, it lets you know that they're not true PlayStation fans, because if you have been through the lineage of PlayStation from the beginning, you would know that that's not all that they've been about. That era of PlayStation really started during the PS4 era. You know what I mean? Like if you go back to even the PS3 era, that is not what they were known for. So
that's a great point.
You know, a lot of people who came over from the 360 who weren't extremely happy with what Xbox was doing, you know, they kind of adopted, you know, PlayStation as their new home, and they got used to those games during the PS4 generation, and that's kind of what they expect from PlayStation. But that's not all that they're known for.
I'd like to add something to that too, and people really need to, like, well, in my opinion, people should calm down a little bit, because you have to look at track record. There has not been a generation of PlayStation where they left us dry. I mean, the PS4 got off to a slow start, and look at the midway and look at the finish. The PS3 was, people call it the worst generation. The only thing that was the worst generation about the PS3 was their PR, because they was telling folks to get second jobs and mow lawns and shit. But outside of that, you want to talk about a rally and a comeback. It was the biggest comeback in history, gaming history, in my opinion. We got so many new IPs, whole series that started and finished. You know, well, not finished, but started and got multiple entries into. PlayStation has always delivered, always, every gen. So I mean, you know, people talk about, well, you know, it's dry on first party, and it's like, but they're still providing you reasons to play on the console via second and third party deals, and you know they're making stuff. Like, you know, they have games cooking up right now. Give them time. Like, look how it launched. The PS5 launched, number one, it launched with a game packed in. You know, I'm not going to say that I'm head over heels for Jim Ryan, but the man didn't lie when he said they weren't focused on being the cheapest. They're focused on value, having the best value. The console launched as the same price as their competitor, and it had a game packed in. It launched with first-party games to play for the first few years. And okay, we have is this supposed to be the dry year, 2023? And they have one first-party game coming towards next month. Like, you know, people need to be patient, man. Like,
but this is the thing. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, they only have one first-party game. But when you actually break it down, they have 3 games coming within the next 6 weeks. From a first party.
Yeah, that's right. Concord. I totally forgot about Concord.
Concord is literally launching in like a week.
Yeah, Concord.
And then after that, you have Astrobot, and then after that, you have a co-developed game and Horizon, the Lego Horizon game. So it's not like,
yeah, that's right.
They haven't been doing anything, and they have 3 first-party games coming at the end of the year. So it's like, yeah, everything might not be for you, but if you're a PlayStation fan, that's how they've always been. Go back to the PS3. Every game was not for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, we only got to this era where everybody only expects the biggest and best games from PlayStation from the PS4 generation. And I understand that. People got used to that. That's what they were being fed, so that's what they want. And those games are coming. But you also have to understand that during that transition, we also changed CEOs. We went from having Sean Layden to Jim Ryan, who had a totally different focus on what he wanted the platform to be. And guess what? He grew the platform to be the biggest and best at a point where there was no consoles even buy off shelves. Yep. People forget that. We went through a pandemic, and still the PS5 is outpacing the PS4. Make that make sense. And it's more expensive.
Yeah, there's been no price. There hasn't been a price drop. It's crazy. It's pretty freaking like, it's an amazing accomplishment. I mean, And then after all said, B, look at what Totoki said. Hiroki Totoki during that investor call, he said no legacy IP this year. Like obviously, you can insert whatever you want, but what that tells me is let's be on the lookout for next year. Because if nothing
Right.
was coming next year, I feel like he would have said no new existing IP franchises this year or next year. He just said 2024.
Right. And if you just look at their latest earnings call, they have higher projections for what they expect within the next these next few fiscal quarters than any other platform. They already said that they have games that will be announced this year that will be releasing in 2025. So games are coming. Yes, it has been slow from a first party standpoint. I will give people that. But it's not like they haven't been providing games. They've had games all year that you can only play on their platform if you're a console gamer.
And if you look at what they've been doing, I mean, I got to go back to what Jim Ryan said. He said we're going to let the games do the talking. And that's kind of what they've been doing. Like every game they have announced since the PS5 has existed, every game they've announced has been within a 12-month window. In some cases 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I feel like that's why we've been seeing things the way we've been seeing things is because people complain because when God of War and Spider-Man were announced at E3, which was amazing, we waited what,
2.5 years.
Was it 2 years or 3 years? 2.5 years.
Yep.
People were like, man, where's God of War? Man, where's God of War? Where's Spider-Man? Why did they announce it so early? Blah 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 blah. Now they're like, they're not talking. And I'm like, okay, it would be nice to have a showcase, but at the same time, man, we still got games to play, and their new strategy, we've seen what their new strategy is. They announce the games and within a 12-month window, the games drop. So, I mean, like, it's going to be one or the other. Like, they have a plan and they're sticking to it. And yeah, it'd be nice to have a showcase. I'd love to see a showcase, but at the same time, it's not like we're high and dry and we don't have anything to play. We got plenty to play.
And when they changed that strategy, I came on this very show and told everybody that was a strategy, and people just totally ignored it. I told y'all when Jim Ryan took over, 6 months after he took over, the strategy changed, and nobody believed what I was saying. Everybody all upset. I told y'all that they were changing the way that they were rolling out their games. They're not going to be doing these announcements where games are announced 2 and 3 years out, and then they got to ramp up the marketing again when they're about to release it. They want to announce the game, market, release. That's the new cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't disagree with you guys, but I will say I think one of the things that's going on and is part of the reason that people are perceiving the optic differently is what I believe we're seeing is that for whatever reason, Xbox's stumble was as we entered the pandemic. And so whatever was going wrong with their production pipeline, their loss of efficiency, their loss of cadence was on the front end of the pandemic. They seem like they may be on the verge of recovering from that. The calculations that I ran 2 years ago showed that they would be on their way to recovering in the first half of 2025. And that looks to be the pace that they're on. I think what we are seeing is that cadence and that frequency for PlayStation was fine through the pandemic, but it does seem like on the outlet side of the pandemic that a little bit of gas has gone out of the engine and that they are not on the cadence that they have previously been on. I don't think that they are as nearly anywhere near as far off as Xbox got, and I would say that Xbox's falling off of the cadence to me was kind of inexplicable. But I will say it does seem like that bow wave of kind of when the inefficiency may hit you, and maybe it was a matter of games were further along in production pipeline at the beginning of the pandemic for PlayStation than they were, but it seems like they have pumped a lot of those things out of the production pipeline, and that there was a momentary, whether it was a matter of kind of strategically blinking and getting their trajectory together, kind of as you mentioned, right, with the CEO changeover and the shift in focus and the gas strategy coming into play, et cetera. And that has caused maybe a bit of a hitch in the step. But again, absolutely agree with you guys. I don't think it's any reason for anybody to lose confidence in the platform. You may not have as many talking points, right, for console warring on Twitter as you might normally have. But like I said, that where those things have impacted the pipelines for each of the platforms, it does seem to be that time lag and delay for PlayStation.
When you bring up that point, actually, it reminds me of something else because, that I totally didn't think about a back end what do you call it? Feeling the back end ramifications from COVID. And one thing that I wish, I know they have different strategies, two different companies, two different strategies, but I really wish Xbox would have taken a closer look at PlayStation. I mean, if we can see it, why can't they see it? They got Shuhei Yoshida filling in the gaps. Shuhei went over to Korea, and what did he do? He talked to a guy from a little dev team called Shift Up. They showed him, they came up to him, showed him what they had. Shuhei's like, I like what I see. And, I'm simplifying it, but writes them a PlayStation check. And then we could sell Stellar Blade. And they're like, okay, how else can we fill in the gaps? They already had the deals with, Final Fantasy and whatnot. Like, you fill in the gaps. You know what I mean? Like, you're trying to create a reason for people to want your console. If somebody doesn't have either one of them and GTA 6 is coming out, they're like, okay, GTA 6 is going to come out on both platforms. Which one do I get it on? And you're like, and they're standing in the store, and then, the GameStop employee, for instance, says, well, what other type of games you like? Well, I like action adventure, like story driven, blah, blah, blah. And then, do either of these consoles have something like that I can't get on the other? And that's, there you go. You know what I mean? So you fill in the gaps with third party stuff when you slow down, or second party.
Yeah. And I want to be clear. So the thing that I mentioned about kind of where there's a oscillating wave kind of off shift on when it impacted their production pipelines, that was only specific to to PlayStation's first party, right? I completely agree with you. They've done, I think, a much better and more robust job in terms of overall portfolio management. You don't see we haven't gotten any indications of emails with the CEO of PlayStation going, hey, where did who go? In the middle of the summer, going, hey, what's going on with the pipeline? Like we did with Xbox, suddenly waking up a month before their showcase, realizing they had nothing plugged into the pipeline for 2022, which to me just seems utterly ridiculous. But yeah, I think like you said, I mean, and like B Money said, like stuff has been there. It may not be, if you are all wrapped around the axle about first party, yeah, that's a problem for you. But in general, as far as games coming to the platform and exclusive games coming to the platform, that battle rhythm has remained consistent enough for, I would think, the average consumer to be satisfied. Just one thing I want to mention before going back to Until Dawn, before I jump off. So one of the reasons, right, one of the likely causalities behind the day and date for a remake is that game sold 4 million copies total-ish, I think. At the time that it released, there were somewhere around maybe 30 million PlayStation 4s on deck. Looking at the way the industry is now and the platform is now and sell-through is now, probably not a bad idea to get that game onto other platforms. And again, like B Money said, right, it's entirely being done to coincide, with their other media ventures. Where again, if you go back to the Sony strategic investors meeting from earlier this year, that is the thing that they talked about. They talked about synergizing their different media pipelines, and using strategies of having those properties come out in similar times and kind of providing knock-on effects to each other, just like we've seen them do with TLU. So it makes sense that they would move to get that on both platforms, given the sell-through that they would want of it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Logic. And there's some news out today. Amazon Prime is picking up some additional gaming franchises to turn into shows. There's some unannounced Sony PlayStation titles that will be turned into TV shows. We don't know what those are, but I think to your point, like T-Loop probably being the best example, I would imagine we'll probably see more of that as well. These remakes, remaster coincide with, these movie adaptations or television adaptations of some of their IPs.
Yeah, this will actually be the last thing that I want to mention before I get off. So it's good now that we know what the vast majority of Xbox studios are working on. There's still some outliers, right? We don't really know what's going on at remind me, what is the name of the quadruple A studio?
The Initiative.
The Initiative. We don't really know what's going on with that. They've got help, from a group that's at Embracer when Embracer is falling apart. But one thing I do want to say, and again, this may be a matter of people who work in different areas, but in engineering circles, in software development circles, in digital enterprises, when we talk about a roadmap, that means it is a plan that has dates. There is no such thing as a roadmap when you don't have dates. A notion of things that are going to come out that don't have dates is not a roadmap. So this notion that there's an Xbox roadmap when there's a bunch of IP identified that studios are working on, when the vast majority of that IP does not have dates, that does not constitute a roadmap. So your level of confidence. I'm sorry?
Would you call it a trail?
Breadcrumbs, a line of ants, maybe. Your confidence in that. If you're an Xbox faithful and you're an Xbox fan, you've already made the choice and you've already indicated that you're going to believe whatever is told to you anyway, regardless of actual market performance. So there's no reason for you to have a lack of confidence on those games. If you're an objectivist and a realist, you would recognize, right, that you just don't know when those games are coming out. You hope that they'll land. You hope that they'll come out, and you hope that at least half of them will stick the landing when they do. But you don't really know, because if you're basing that on past performance, particularly this generation to date. So just want to mention that, and with that, I will let you guys have at it for the rest of the show.
All right, Logic. Thanks for time again, as always, sir.
Always a pleasure, Logic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Good seeing you, B-Money.
Yeah, man. It was good to have a little conversation with you before you get out of here.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
All right, Logic. We'll catch you later, man. All right. I did miss a super chat here from Street Shadow with the $5 super chat. Says September date would make sense. PlayStation 1 released in the U.S. September 9th, and this is their 30th year anniversary. So thank you for that super chat. I often wonder if Sony's going to do anything for the 30th. We'll see. But what's interesting, gentlemen, is as I'm kind of glancing through social media, and I'm seeing some of the reaction about another potential Xbox game, people being upset. It's like, I think at this point for me, it's difficult to understand how you could be upset knowing that this is the direction they were heading back in February. Like, this isn't. If you were somebody who, if you could put the fandom aside and look at it objectively, and if you took the time to look at some of the changes in messaging and the consistent pivots, and if you look at the impact of the ABK deal to their business, if you look at you look at their financial statements, right? You look at the performance of the Xbox in terms of market share, things like that, and that it hasn't really got the Xbox this generation hasn't had a lot of when you compare it to Nintendo and Sony, it hasn't had the same level of revenue growth this generation. And when you see those things and you tie them all together, you kind of connect the dots, if you will. This shouldn't be a surprise. And I guess for me at least, I'm always just amazed how people act surprised when they hear that another Xbox first party exclusive is going to go on PlayStation or PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. I mean, this is the direction they're heading. I know Phil said don't expect this to be the norm, but he wasn't telling the truth. I mean, he was, I think he also kind of left that open for the time being. What are your thoughts, B? Like when you now that we're hearing maybe Forza Horizon 5, if that UK Amazon leak is to be believed, that the game is releasing on the 27th of September on PlayStation 5. What do you think about this, B?
Hey, I done told y'all.
I knew you were going to say that, by the way, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I done told y'all, man. When y'all gonna listen? When y'all gonna listen, man? This story has been written out for a long time, and I've been reading y'all this bedtime story for quite a long time, and y'all been falling asleep, not paying attention. This is exactly what I expected to happen. This is Microsoft, a software company that puts their software everywhere. They made a $70 billion acquisition, and they need to get their money back. I told y'all many times that most people don't care about Xbox. I've been saying this for years, and it's only becoming more true by the day. Every quarter, for the last few quarters, their hardware sales have been down.
And not just down,
not,
but
not 5%, not 10%.
Yeah.
20, 30, 40% down.
Yeah. I mean, B, I think, you, to your point, I mean, the hardware is coming down already from a low. Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just progressively getting lower.
Right.
You know? And they're not even, like Amy Hood had mentioned before, this past quarter, the past financial quarter that was released, she even said prior, like, we expect even more decline. So she let everyone know ahead of time before we saw the negative 42% in console hardware revenue. So, but go ahead, B. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, because they know that they're diminishing their brand. They know what they're doing. They know what their end goal is. Their end goal is to be the biggest publisher in gaming. And,
I don't disagree with that.
That's what they're going to be. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't care that they're not selling hardware. They've been telling you for years that you don't need their hardware. Yep. You can play it on Samsung TV. You can play it on Amazon Fire Stick. You can play it on a toaster. Wherever you want to play Xbox, you can play it. You just don't need their Xbox. You could buy a bunch of controllers though. They'll release a new controller 4 or 5 times a year,
and a hoodie to go with it.
Right, but they don't care. They don't want you to buy Xbox because they're not trying to sell you Xbox. Yeah, as long as you on Game Pass, that's what matters to them. Yeah, and you can get Game Pass wherever.
I don't disagree, B. And I just want to say something, like, because I know people are gonna be like, "Oh, you guys are bashing Xbox." No, what we're doing is having a conversation about a real conversation about the strategy, the pivot here. And to B's point, like, ultimately they care about their software as a service company. They want their software everywhere. For them, and Slimo has said this, the console now has been replaced by Game Pass. You know, I don't think they're going to stop making hardware. I think they'll make hardware for that, 25, 30 million of consumers that buy Xbox hardware, and I think like Logic has said many times on this show, it'll be more of a boutique product for them. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, B. And it's interesting because, B, I remember you a couple of years ago, you kind of called this before all this stuff started happening.
Yeah, I remember. I totally remember.
I mean, B, I think 2017 you may have called this.
Yes, that's why this is not surprising to me. This is not surprising at all. I've been telling people this for years. This is not something new that I've been saying. I'm not coming out the woodwork. Go back, rewind the tape, dig up old BRAP episodes. I've been saying this for years. This is not something new. This is the fate that Xbox is walking down. people who are all hung up about, you know, waving a green flag and bleeding green, all that is over with. Just enjoy your games wherever they're at. As long as Microsoft is making good games, that's all that matters at the end of the day. As long as Fable is good, that's all that matters. Because chances are it's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And the thing is, to your point about enjoying the games, you're right. They do want to be the biggest publisher with great games. But yeah, at the end of the day, just enjoy the games that they are publishing, and less focus on that they have the right business strategy and their strategies of the future. Because everything that we're seeing right now doesn't necessarily support that idea. You know, I say everything we see in terms of data, how the market's responded to Game Pass, how the market has responded to console AAA games on mobile devices. You know, I just enjoy the games, to your point, B, that are coming out.
I think if you're a fan of Xbox, you're actually kind of lucky because they have an infinitely wealthy parent that is able to swim upside down for a minute to get things going in a different direction. And like what B just said, you know, Xbox is continuing to make games, and from what we've seen in the last showcase, there's some great games coming out. So, you know, and I get it sucks. Like, you know, you're a fan of a platform, you know, you like this platform, you like the ecosystem, you like having that box on your shelf. I totally get that, because there's something cool about it, something nice about having that box sitting there. Like, you know, even if it played natively the same way on my TV, it's just not the same. It's nice to have, you know, your console, you open the box, you take it out, you plug it in, and you've got your console sitting right there. There's a cool factor to that. So I get it. You know, I get the whole, you know, it sucks because the identity of the actual platform is, you know, changing, and a lot of it is going away. But I mean, the decisions have been made, the actions are happening, it's been done. The marketing people are not stupid. If I can sit here, and I've said it before, when they first said no console required, and I said that ain't the way to say it if you care about your console. You can say also available on, and that saves your branding. But if you're saying no console required, that is very deliberate wording. That's not a mistake. So I'm like, you know, the decisions have already been made, and they're implementing their plan right now. So at this point, you know, buy the controller you want to buy. You already have your console. Enjoy your games on your console. Just play the games, and whatever their next move is, whether they go a niche boutique style console experience with an ARM architecture or whatever the case is, be happy that they're still making games. And from what it looks like, they're making good games. They got some good games coming out. I'm excited for South of Midnight, Clockwork Revolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fable. You know what I mean? They got some good games coming out. So, I mean, we still got games. We still got good games coming out. So let's just be happy for that.
Yeah.
You know, if the platform, you know, physical platform is diminishing to a blip on the radar now, but we still get games, I'll take that trade-off because we're still getting games. I
mean, I you know, Ramon, I'm actually, this is the most excited that I've been in quite some time for their pipeline. Like South of Midnight, Indiana Jones, Avowed. Yep. I know I'm missing some other. Fable. You know, obviously the things that Bethesda's going to crank out. You know, the next Elder Scrolls. I mean, they have some things in the pipeline that I'm personally excited about, which I think is great. Yep. And I think, to your point, I mean, people should worry less on who's doing it the right way in terms of business strategy and focus on who's delivering the kind of content that I want to play, because that's ultimately what it's all about. You know, it's not about which strategy works best. I mean, yes, we can have a conversation about that based on tangible data and how the market's reacted to the different strategies. But at the end of the day, I mean, as it relates to Xbox, to your point, Ramon, I mean, there's some stuff there to be excited about. I mean, I think you would probably agree that as someone who's been on the Xbox platform for quite some time, B, I would imagine, I think you're also excited for what they have coming down the pipeline as well, right?
Yeah, South of Midnight, Clockwork Tower, Fable. You know, I'm looking forward to that. You got Outer Worlds 2 You know what I mean? Avowed that they are the Western RPG. You know what I mean? Box. So like if
Exactly.
you're into Western RPGs, I mean they're gonna have the most coming out within the next few years. Where it's like, they should be consistent as far as coming out. So, what Microsoft has done and capturing that's huge. Like I was having this conversation the other day about what games are having like the biggest impact in the industry, and if you're not a live service game, you either are a shooter or RPG that sells the most in the industry. Other than that, everything else is falling to the wayside. If you're not a sports game, some type of live service game like a Roblox, Minecraft, things like that, everything. Look at the top 10 every month or every quarter. When Sakana puts the numbers out, like they're all live service games or sports games. You'll see one other or maybe two other games that kind of crack that top 10. But other than that, that's it. Now, when Cyberpunk lands and they sell 20 million, that's huge. When Witcher lands, they sell 20 million, huge. When Starfield landed and they did 12 million, that's big numbers. You know what I mean? Hogwarts Legacy did 25 million. They outsold Call of Duty for that year. So like when you look at some of the games that have the biggest impacts, it's the Western RPG. So Microsoft, they had a good plan in place where, you know what I mean, they kind of cornered the market on that. So they could be really successful with some of the content that they have coming.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, real quick, Ramon. I'm sorry. Let me grab these super chats real quick from JD Gamer. Big shout out to JD Gamer with 2 super chats. Thank you so much for the super chats. JD Gamer says the first super chat, $10 super chat, says just to kind of put Microsoft statements all together, I expect them to continue to build hardware because of Satya's statement that they plan to stay in the hardware business, regretting having left phones. Yeah, we mentioned this earlier right before the super chat. I think they're going to continue making hardware for those people that want hardware. The 30 or so million consumers that buy Xbox hardware, and it be more kind of a boutique product. And then JD Gamer with the $5 super chat says, I totally agree with Ramon when he. Oh no, that's not that. He just dropped a third super chat. So let me grab the second one. JD Gamer with the second $5 super chat says, with the first $5 super chat says, I also expect Xbox to target hardware in a way they do in other markets. A la Surface, they don't lead the market, but they have their own. Yeah, you may have heard Logic say that to JD Gamer, that he also believes that that the Xbox hardware will be more of a boutique type thing, kind of similar to what they do with their Surface products. And then JD Gamer with the third $5 super chat. Thank you again, JD. Says, I totally agree with Ramon when he says, thank goodness Xbox had a rich daddy to allow them to get everything started, but now that they are what's next. Yeah, I mean, I think what's next, JD, is we got to see. For me, at least, as a gamer, I do, while I'm excited for some of these games they have in pipeline, I do hope they stick the landing with the releases of some of these games that are coming out. And what I mean by that is games that really that are really good. I mean, I mean, like, games. I just think about like when Gears of War first released and the impact that game had. When they had games like when the first Halo release, that kind of impact for me personally, that kind of experience where you don't want to put down the controller and it's just an amazing experience. I feel like they haven't had that in a while. Again, that's just my opinion. But yeah, go back to Ramon here. Go ahead, Ramon.
Well, I'll say this. When JD Gamer said, "What's next?" I don't believe in Game Pass. In the same way, I don't believe in any subscription services of this type, like Netflix, Disney Plus. I still am not sold on it being sustainable, and that's for them to figure out. I'm not emotionally invested in it. If it works out, fine. If it doesn't, I'm cool with that too. It's a beast that continues to need to be fed content and subscribers to consume that content. And I mean, how many subscribers can you accumulate? And with each game that comes out, it needs to bring in new subscribers. If you have the same old subscribers that are there, you're not growing it, right? So I mean, you have subscription fatigue. The prices are going to continue to raise because this, you have to fund this thing. So, but what I do believe in, as we're starting to see, is Xbox's ability to produce games. And like B Money said, they've cornered the Western RPG market. You have Nintendo, platformer and family friendly. They have cornered their little part of the market. Well, I say little, but it's not little at all. But they have their section of the market where they flourish. PlayStation, art, story driven, big, huge production value experiences, excellent games. That's their side of the market that they've hit. And now you have Xbox. They may be the only one who has a physical platform that's in free fall, but they still have games. And the Western RPG market, to a degree, shooters, is where they're holding it down in their corner. So while I'm still not sold that Game Pass is something that can continue, I do believe that they can continue to make games that sell. Even if Game Pass was to go away, I think enough people will buy their games. If Game Pass went away tomorrow, I think there are enough people that still would buy their games that they would still continue on being, eventually the biggest publisher in gaming. So, regardless of what happens to the platform, I think that they are positioning themselves to continue on in a different capacity, but in a successful one. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. But what I like to see is that they're finding their corner of the market where they're the strongest, and that's the Western RPGs.
Yeah, let me grab. Thank you for that, Ramon. Let me grab another super chat here from JD Gamer. Thank you again, JD. Really appreciate it. With the $5 super chat, the question of the panel is: if Xbox doesn't put those newly desired games that you all listed on other platforms, are you buying Xboxes? B, how would you answer that question for yourself?
No, sir. I have an Xbox already that is more than capable than those Xboxes that they sell on the shelf. So I will no longer be purchasing an Xbox. I did not buy a Series X when it launched or Series S. I just upgraded my PC, and that's what I'll continue to do going forward. I don't see myself purchasing Xbox hardware at all ever again.
To your point, B, I wouldn't, and to answer JD's question, I wouldn't buy another Xbox. My primary gaming platform is PC, and since Xbox is on PC, there just isn't any reason for me to buy another console. And Ramon, I think you probably feel the same way too, since you're going in your first year as a PC gamer.
My Xbox Series X financed my GPU, and every Xbox game that releases that I'm interested in, as you already said, BRAP, I buy on PC. My PC is more powerful than the current Xbox, the next Xbox, and very likely the one after that, if there is one. There's the only scenario that could get me to buy an Xbox is if they pulled day one releases from PC and had a competent console with compelling software. That's the only thing that would pull me back into buying an Xbox, and I feel confident saying that's highly unlikely. So I won't be buying another console.
I agree with you, Ramon. Like they would have to like JD's describing, not release those first party exclusives on other platforms, and not only that, but really take advantage of the hardware of the console, right? And my preference would be for them not to release like another S tier console, or entry level console. Just focus on a high end console like the Series X, and just focus on developing for that, and designing your games around that hardware specifically. But what
do you think would happen if they didn't release the Series S? Do you think that the Series X like consoles would be higher, like much higher, or like would they be kind of similar to what they are now?
I think
performance.
No, I'm just talking about in far as in regards to sales, because like we know,
Oh,
like the
sales.
console hasn't, the series consoles haven't sold probably as great as they expected. I mean, they're selling behind the Xbox One, and the Xbox One didn't sell that great. So if they didn't release the Series S and it was just the X, like what do you think the outcome would be?
I think player just mentioned this live chat. I honestly think that the sales would be lower for the series consoles. I think we wouldn't have. I also think we wouldn't have the conversation around, or you wouldn't hear stories of developers saying that, look, we had there's issues developing for the Series S and the Series X. It's a headache. It's additional time, money, resources doing so. Again, that's not across the board for all developers, but I don't think we would be hearing that at all if it was just the Series X. I think for me, and I know B, you mentioned that the Xbox is now the Xbox Series consoles is trailing the Xbox One now. I think is it trailing it by? I think it's single digits right now, maybe 8%.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and it's almost on par with the 360. But I don't. I think we'd probably have less sales, even more so than now. I mean, seeing. I think what's fascinating to me is that I fully expected, and I think Logic and I were having this conversation the other day. I fully expected coming into this generation that the Xbox console would have been more competitive. And the reason I thought that was because they had the Xbox Series X, and then they also offered the lowest entry point, lowest cost of entry into the current gen in the Series S at a price point that was on par with the Nintendo Switch, and it was more powerful than the Nintendo Switch. And then you had Game Pass on top of that. And I'm like, yeah, they should I thought it was going to be a close, competitive console gen for them with Sony. Much more so than the PlayStation 4. And that just hasn't been the case. And the only thing that I can point to, and gentlemen, let me know what you think if you agree with this. The only thing I can point to is that it just came down to lack of compelling software. Someone said it on the panel earlier. Just lack of really compelling software that really motivates people to get off the couch and go out and buy Xbox consoles.
I'll say this to answer your question, B Money, and in agreement with you, player, and BRAP. I don't think the console sales would be higher. They, at best case scenario, would be the same as they are now, and I mean that's a very optimistic best case scenario, because the sales are what they are now with both consoles combined. So if there was no Series S, they're not going to be higher, so they would either be the same or they would be lower. If the Series X outperformed the PlayStation 5 on every third-party game that came out, it still wouldn't matter, because the average person, myself included, does not have Digital Foundry tech, and therefore the differences would be minimal, like at best. Now, moving over to, and what were you? I lost my train of thought. What were you asking, Brap? You asked something.
Yeah, if you think that it's the lack of compelling software.
Yeah.
And real quick, I'm sorry, Ramon, but also I think player brings up a really good point here, and I think this is later on in the gen now, right? We are now seeing the impact of them releasing their games day and date on other platforms. Like player said, the Xbox Series consoles are competing against Steam and PC Game Pass. No other Xbox console had to do that. I think that's fair, because now you don't need an Xbox console. And I've heard people people in the industry say that the Game Pass on PC or release. I'm sorry, not Game Pass on PC per se, but releasing their first party games day and date on PC has cannibalized about a third of their console consumer base. So, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why they've been having issues selling console too, and I think we're seeing that more in the latter part of this generation. But go ahead, Ramon.
Yeah, basically. The Series X was practically my first Xbox console. I say practically because I bought an OG Xbox grudgingly for Ninja Gaiden. It held out for me through completing Ninja Gaiden and 2 other games before it died on me. Extended warranty. I went through 3 more before the GameStop people finally said, you know what, man, let's just give you a store credit and you can buy something else if you want. So I had the Red Ring of Death before the 360. Don't ask me why my luck was so bad, because I have no idea. But so the Series X practically my first console, because I only had the OG for like literally a month. The reason I bought it was because they bought Bethesda and Elder Scrolls 6. I had played Skyrim, so I was officially an Elder Scrolls fan. I liked Outer Worlds. There were some other games, and that's what sold it to me. Game Pass didn't do it for me. It was the games. I saw games and I was like, okay, they're making some moves. I like what I see for once. And I skipped the 360 generation, keep in mind. I've never owned a 360. So they sold me on this gen with compelling software that I saw. Now, who could have foreseen what happened? But, lack of compelling software is their biggest Achilles heel. It's, it is what it is. Games are coming out now, but now that they're going everywhere, people are just going to say, oh man, that looks great. When is it going to go to PlayStation? I can wait. That's what people are going to say, so that's what it is. What's up, Forte?
Yeah, I would have grabbed the super chat here. Forte is alive. I can't. Forte, where have you been? I was worried about you. I was about to put you on a milk carton. Gaming Forte with a $5 super chat says, not buying the next Xbox. My 5950X is getting long in the tooth, but I'll buy a 7950X 3D and high-end motherboard to be exact. I'm straight on the GPU for now. Thank you for that super chat, Forte. Great to see you, Forte. It's been a long time. Hope everything's okay on your end. Please check out DPS Podcast tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Gaming Forte and Slimonius Black Slap. So, yeah, but I think in part compelling software. I don't disagree with that. I think, and I think B, you probably would agree with that too, right? The lack of compelling software.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it, but I also think it was the messaging around Xbox. You know what I mean? Like the lack of marketing, the lack of being able to sell in different markets and be appealing in different markets truly has hindered the growth of what Xbox could have had. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably one of their other big issues. Like, because when you, like I said, when you look at the top 10, like, people are saying that playing the same games across all platforms. Everybody's playing Roblox, everybody's playing Fortnite, Call of Duty, NBA 2K, FIFA. Like, all the big games are being played across all platforms. So, like, when you have the best value in gaming, where it's like, all right, well, you give me, $10 a month, at that time, and you get all these games, plus you could still, play all the biggest games on this box. Like, it was just a lack of messaging and proper marketing that didn't get them across, the finish line to actually be a more compelling product.
Yeah, it's a great point, B. I mean, the lack of marketing and the inability to garner like that global, like in Europe, to really like make inroads, in those markets in Europe. It's kind of for me, it's a bit of a head scratch, because they did get some traction during the 360 generation. To me, that's their best generation. But I go back and I look at that generation, and that generation had really compelling titles that were critically acclaimed, titles that were, I mean, those are things that those are tangible ways, and whether people are like, oh, it's biased media. I'm like, no, it's look. I mean, we've seen that when Xbox releases really compelling games titles, those games are well received. Look at Hi-Fi Rush, an example. And he lives. He's here, Forte.
Yo.
Forte.
What up, bro?
I didn't know I was missed.
Forte, dude, you know what, man? I have been asking Slow-Mo where you been. You haven't been in the break. Like I was about to fly out to Michigan, man.
Oh man, no, don't do that.
I almost had OBM run out and do a wellness check on you, man.
Yeah, I've been good. I just ain't had. I don't know. Just haven't been feeling all this stuff, so had to take a mental break.
Nah, man, no doubt, man. I hear you.
It's the moment people start irritated. The moment you get irritated by other people's opinions is the moment you walk away.
So you just walked away. You're like, I'm out. I hear you.
Because people are idiots, and I don't want to argue with them because it's a waste of air and breath. So
yeah.
I know if I look at a lot of stuff, it's going to irritate me more. And I told myself, I was like, the moment that happened is the moment I take a break and just not look at stuff. So it's other than that, it's been good. Just been working on stuff in behind the scenes and working and playing games, which is what most of these people should do and don't do.
I don't disagree with you, Forte. A lot of people aren't playing games; they're playing other stuff like fandom wars and console wars and all the other stuff. Real quick, I want to get this super chat, another super chat from JD Gamer. Thank you, JD. Really appreciate the support as always. His $5 super chat reads: question: if games are the things that sells hardware and Xbox looks to have high quality games set to come for the next few years, will Xboxes sell? Yeah, I think that's possible. I think you could see some Xbox sell, but I think the other challenge now is that they pretty much have marketed the fact that you don't need Xbox, and I think as more games come to PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, then it's a matter of and the games coming day and date on PC. It's a matter of will you wait if you're on the PlayStation ecosystem or go out and buy an Xbox? I think some people will wait, others will go buy. I'm not saying that the quality or high impact or high quality or games that really move the needle aren't going to have some impact on Xbox sales. I just don't think it's going to be a lot, given that you really don't need the console per se. Again, I'm not saying it's zero, but I don't think it's going to be a big impact in hardware sales.
I think once they see, this is the thing. I agree with the whole notion about telling people they shouldn't own Xboxes. That definitely hurts them a lot because they've been doing it for like 3-4 years now. And that messaging is really, really seeping deep into just the overall psyche of most gamers and stuff. But I think Xbox is going to live in that 45 to 50 million console area when it comes to like lifetime sales of whatever generation they're in. If they're around 30, I think by the time this generation is over in 2028, 2027, they'll be, depending on when they cut ties with last generation, I think they can see a really good jump next year, especially if GTA comes out next year. PlayStation is going to see a huge jump. I see Xbox might see a huge jump just for the simple fact that people are going to want to move over. So I do think they're going to get a substantial jump when they finally do decide to like cut ties with last gen. And then once all the other games, like the funny thing is I was talking to somebody because I play a lot of college football, and the Madden beta just came out, or the demo for EA Play came out, and people were talking about like, man, why does college football look better than Madden? And why does it feel better than Madden? I was like, because
Madden tries so hard to make their game feel like NCAA that it's hilarious.
You know why? But the reason it feels better is because NCAA is next gen and Madden's on everything.
Yep.
And you can feel it in the game. And I'm sitting there like,
wow.
You can feel it. It's like you can tell that NCAA is a completely different game because it's not last gen where Madden is.
So what is specifically, like, what do you say feel like? Is it just the
overall way the game feels, the way the game plays, the way the game looks?
Wow.
The menu, if you go look at the menus, just the menus and the presentation of the game, if you look at it in NCAA, it looks better than Madden. The overall presentation of the game looks and feels better. But the fact that Madden is on everything, it kind of takes away those little touches that next gen does. So we already saw what the placebo effect of NCAA was when people saw that they couldn't, first of all, it's the first one in, a decade. So people were already excited about that. Then the fact that it was next gen only, people went out and bought consoles for that. What do people still buy Madden and they're going to buy NBA. What's going to happen? And the thing is, as long as NBA still offers a last gen version, people aren't going to move. So it just who's to know that when these companies decide to move, that's when you're going to see the biggest jump. We already know GTA is going to be one of them. Call of Duty is another one, but Microsoft, as of this year, they're still making a last gen version. The moment they decide to cut ties with last gen, you're going to see a huge bump in player base then. And then the other ones are going to be like E was talking about, the games that are in the top 10 for the most part, outside of one or two outliers that, really hit that year, like Hogwarts or like Spider-Man during the holidays or something like that. One of those big tentpole titles that come out that's going to kind of disrupt the top 10. Yeah. But by the time you get to the end of the year, you're only going to see those, games as a service games up there and maybe one or two of those tentpole games. And what's going to happen is, when are they going to make the decision? Even Destiny has fallen on hard times, but that game's still on last gen. Fortnite's still on last gen. Apex Legend is still on last gen. So all the games that matter haven't done anything to like make people move.
You know why that is though, right?
Because that's where the money is.
Yeah, because that's all the most of their money comes from those people that are on last gen.
Yep. And they don't want to take the chance.
It's hard to walk away from that. It's hard for Epic to come out and say, all right, the next update is only on next gen. Because you can't expect 20 million people to go out and buy a new platform and get that same revenue. You know what I mean? So, like, it's a big risk. And so, like, business-wise, like, you kind of understand why they are sticking with it. Like, I wish they would have moved over, 2 or 3 years into the gen. But my fear now is that those games will persist until the next generation comes out. And then that's when they will move over. Because then they can only stay on the previous gen, which will be this gen that we're currently in. And they'll be, on the new consoles or the next generation. But I have a feeling that all of these games are going to stay on last gen until the next generation starts.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that people, and I know what people are going to say, well, Grand Theft Auto isn't doing that. They're going to push the envelope, and E is right about even them. I mean, not E, B. I keep getting everybody mixed up. B is right about them. It's like when it comes to Rockstar, they don't want to move forward. Think about it. That's why they didn't make that's why it took them all the way to last year to make a semi next gen version of GTA 5, because they just kept selling off the old one. And what's going to happen is they know they're going to get a substantial amount of people to move over with GTA 6 because people are going to want to wait to play that game. But what's going to also happen is they know that game has such a long tail. They just saw the metrics that people were still buying brand new copies of the game in 2024 from a game that was made in 2013. So they look at it like, okay,
3 generations.
It doesn't matter to them. So they sit there and say, well, if we make the game next gen, either we're going to get your money in 2025 or we're going to get your money in 2032. It doesn't matter. We're going to get it at some point. So they're the one outlier where they can like literally buck the trend and not worry about sales, because they know from just past experience with their last game, especially if it lives and is as good as the last one was, they have a cash cow for at least 10 to 12 years. So it's going to be interesting to see how people play this scenario out. That's why I kind of never really talked about how sales are impacting right now, because it's all it's all kind of it's either inflated or it's not really what it needs to be, because all of that's going to change if one or two things happens when it comes to like the developers and corporations making these games available that people can't play on other platforms. It's not the fact that it's not the fact that consoles are dying or the console market is shrinking. It's just that the consumer is smarter and they're like, why would I pay more for something that I can still play? And especially if I don't care about all the bells and whistles and stuff that these corporations are talking about. And you hear it loud and clear, like gamers are talking by not buying systems. So that's why developers are staying where they are.
And parents aren't forced to move over.
Exactly.
Little Jimmy can still play Minecraft. Little Timmy can still play Fortnite with all his friends who have moved over to whatever console that they have. Guess what?
Yeah.
Little Jimmy ain't left out. He's still playing. So there's no reason for all these little kids to have consoles up under the tree during Christmas, because guess what? Their console works just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And they playing all the same games.
Yep.
I do think the one thing that is like kind of the Trojan horse in this is crossplay. The fact that it used to be a moment where if somebody did upgrade to next gen, you had to like at least be on that same gen as them. Now some games are like that. That's how NBA does it. Madden does it like that. Call of Duty doesn't. You can still play with, as long as you're on a PlayStation, you play with PlayStation guys, because the game has cross play and cross compatibility across the whole platform. You play with PC, you play with PS4, you play with Xbox One, and you play with Xbox Series X and S. So now you have a situation where gamers are like, shoot, if I already have the ecosystem that I'm in, and then on top of that, I don't even have to upgrade in that ecosystem, because the ecosystem that my friends might have on the other side, I can still play with them. So it's crazy when you sit there, you like really break it down.
You know what, man? You really got me interested in NCAA football now. When you're saying,
man,
like,
NCAA football lit, bro.
Now I want to try it out, because
it's fun, man.
The only thing
fun, bro.
the thing I was disappointed about, I have EA Pro on PC.
It's not on there,
and it's not on there. But Madden 25 is. I'm just like, what? Like, what? What's interesting is NCAA too. If you guys remember, EA announced they sold 2 million copies of the early edition. That was $100 retail.
2.2 million day one for the $100 version, and then they had 660,000 people that played through services.
I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of revenue for,
and that's all people that could only play next gen. So think about how many how many people went out and bought. That's why I'm real interested for really the July MPD number. I mean, well, not so kind of numbers to come out, and then August, because that's going to really speak to how dead the console market really isn't. Because you're going to see, I think you're going to see like huge growth over the month of July and August, just for the fact that people had a reason to upgrade their systems.
Yeah. Well, look, gentlemen, I do need to wrap up the show, but I want to thank everyone in the live chat for hanging out with us this evening. Thank you to JD Gamer for all the super chats as well. Appreciate the support. By the way, just as a reminder, we do have a subscription tier. Support the channel. Become a BRAP. Consider becoming a BRAP VIP member. And I was going to do a giveaway tonight, but I'm going to wait till next week to do a giveaway. It's going to be a video game related giveaway to one of the subscribers. Actually, one of the perks that you get for being a BRAP VIP member is we do the monthly giveaway that you could potentially, or that you could potentially win for that month. So, but also, if you haven't done so, hit that like button. And if you're new, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. True Series says the Terps need guidance, BRAP. Yeah, I'm sure the Terps aren't good in NCAA football, but yeah, I want to give a big shout out to Game Logic, who was here earlier, who had to leave, and also big shout to Ramon for joining us. Ramon, thank you so much again for joining us. I know it's kind of at the 11th hour when I reached out to you. So certainly appreciate the time. Thank you again.
Oh man, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, and an added pleasure whenever I get to share airtime with B Money and Forte as well. Yeah, it's been a great time. Everybody, enjoy your games, play your games. We are drowning in games. There's no reason to contemplate like any of this heavy stuff unnecessarily because we are literally drowning in games. So there has never been a better time to be a gamer. So enjoy this hobby. We are blessed to have it. And have fun. Enjoy summer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of games to be played still. Forte.
Yo.
Great to see you back, sir. You have a show you got to come back next week, man.
Oh yeah, I'll come back next week.
We'll get you back for it. And get
this felt good. This felt good.
I don't think Slow-Mo likes us anymore. Slow-Mo is playing Call of Duty right now, and yeah, we have to.
Well, when I get home from because I had inventory earlier today, so when I got home around 9:45, I started listening to y'all. But I've been working on the we're doing a rebranding of DPS since we put it only on the DPS channel now. So I've been working on all of the new stuff for that. So that's what I was working on today. Then when I super chatted y'all, you was like, I missed you, and I was like, oh. I'll jump in for a second.
No, man, I appreciate you coming through, man. Definitely. I hope you can make next week, man.
I'm off work next week, so I can jump in next week.
Yeah, it's great when we can get everyone together. I know everyone's on different schedules, so I certainly appreciate the time when everyone can make it. But you have a show tomorrow night. Let everyone know where they can find the show. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it is no longer on me or Slow-Mo's channel. It is the official DPS channel. Just type in, go to YouTube, type in DPS or Damage Per Second podcast. It will come up. Sub to that channel. That's where the podcast will live. That's where we do any type of content. When we do live streams, like me and Slow-Mo do them together, or when he does them separately, we do them over there. So definitely come over there and show your love and support. And we go live tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it's gonna be a blast. I haven't seen Slow-Mo since last week, so I definitely need to know. I gotta ask him what the topics are for tomorrow. So, but outside of that, man, it's been great. I'm happy to be here. Great conversation, great chat. Shout out to the homie JD Gamer. You need to come through and come holler at me, bro. And tell me about your how you feeling about your new wife that you about to get married to. So other than that, have a great weekend, guys.
Yeah, congrats to JD, by the way, taking the plunge.
Yeah, I tried to talk him off the ledge, but she's a very, very nice lady. I talked to her one day. He had her on FaceTime, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I approve."
Oh man, all right.
I approve. Well, listen, when you got friends, but you got to let your friends know, like, hey, I don't approve of this. If you are not a good friend if you don't tell your friends if you approve or disapprove. Like, your opinion really matters, but you got to make them feel like you got the best interest at heart.
Yeah. All right. Well, check out DPS tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Damage Per Second podcast on YouTube. It should be a great show as always with Gaming Forte and Slow-Mo Backslap and B Money. Hey, always a pleasure. Hope you can make next week as well. B, I know you're busy with sports and everything, but always a pleasure having you on, man. Thank you.
Yeah. It's always great to be here, man, and have great conversation with the guys. Schedule is crazy. Kids playing football. My daughter's doing soccer, so it's a lot going on. But if I can make it, even if I jump in late like I did today, I'll definitely try to get there, and so we can continue these great conversations, man. We need to bring these type of conversations back to gaming, and not all the fanboy nonsense that's been going on over the last few months. So
yeah,
it was great to be here.
Yeah, no, great having you on. It's really cool. We've all been doing this show together for a long time. Like pre-pandemic long time. I think Forte, you guys have been on the show. You and Sloan been on the show for what, 6 years?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's crazy. And then B since 9 years.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, 2015. Yeah, it's just and now Logic has been on the show for I think 2 years now, maybe 3, going on 3. But yeah, it's just great to have everyone here and just talk about gaming. So thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Appreciate the time as always. And Forte, I may have to check out again. May have to check out NCAA. If you're saying it's next gen like that, I may need to check that out.
Good, man. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I have a quick gaming PSA, if I may.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate one more time. Check out the indie game Hob, H-O-B, Hob. And also, both of the new Prince of Persia games, The Lost Crown and the Rogue Prince of Persia, are not only on sale individually on Steam, but they are also on sale as a bundle on Steam for an additional 10% off of the sale that they're already on. So what I mean is, both Prince of Persias, let's just say, are on sale for one's on sale for 40% off, one's on sale for 30% off. If you buy the bundle, you still get that 40% and 30% off, but then another 10% off because you're buying the bundle. So if you've been even moderately interested in those games and you're on the fence, now's the time.
That's awesome, man.
Those Sleeper Experience too.
Yeah, I may need to check that out as well. So
they got me, man. They got me.
I'm telling you, man, you got to be careful with PC gaming, man.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. It definitely is. So
buying something on Steam, it's kind of ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it is.
It's true, B. But all right, thank you again, everyone. The live chat, please smash that like button if you haven't already. And if you're new, hit the bell or consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. And we'll be back next week. I may do a BRAP rant on Friday. So give me a follow on X, formerly known as Twitter, at BRAP_podcast. I post a lot of programming updates related to the show there. So if I do a BRAP rant, I will certainly post it there. And or if you subscribe to the channel, you'll get the YouTube notifications when I schedule shows. So other than that, have a great rest of the evening and great rest of the week. And remember, have fun playing video games, because ultimately that's what it's all about. Like Ramon said, just have fun playing video games. Tune out all the other nonsense, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.